And good morning to everyone. And we're live this morning. Welcome to Behind the Markets, the Monday edition, the relaxed version, the laid back one, not the ones where I thump you with numbers all the way through. Today's more of the morning conversation, the morning drive, as we like to say to everybody, as you're kind of kicking back into your Monday morning. And today we're going to be talking about things you need to grow out of as your wealth grows. This is a very important topic today. But Brennan, how are you doing and how was your weekend?
Doing all right, thank you. My weekend primarily was circled around work and work, so I feel like today is just another day of work, and not really had a weekend per se of relaxation. No.
Yeah, there was an old adage, I think, by one of the rappers I used to listen to, who said, "I'll sleep when I'm deceased." And one responded to him, "Because of that, you will be deceased." That is the mindset that we have to be afraid of. So today, Brendan, I want to start as we've come out of Sunday. I'm going to start with a biblical reference here, and this is the base. This is going to form the basis of everything that we talk about. And today comes from First Corinthians 13 verse 11, which reads, "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me." Okay. So that's a very important way of thinking about what we're about to say today, because they are ways that you need to shed off, which a lot of people need to start thinking about and shedding off, especially when it comes to wealth creation. And I will try and read it again so that it sticks with everybody. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but we then face to face. Now, this is just something that I want everyone to remember and recall. So I want to paraphrase this to say, when I was broke, I thought broke, I reasoned broke, I behaved broke. But when I stopped being broke, I put away broke ways. And this is kind of the problem that a lot of people struggle with as they go through their journeys, whether it's building an enterprise, whether it's building a portfolio, whether it's building a career. There seems to be a problem transitioning your ways as you go into this. And one of the biggest problems that you face whenever somebody says, "I desire to improve my finances, I desire to finally get that business started," there's a specific way of thinking and behaving that people do not progress with. So today's going to be more of a financial behavioral conversation. And you'll notice that on Mondays, I speak a lot more about behavioral finance. More than I speak a lot about the numbers and the tactics. We really try and get to the behavioral side of finance to see how people, what is it that drives decision making. And I want to read from this gentleman here. I know he was in the studio earlier. To everyone, I want to read from his book here. There was a statement that he talked about where he talked about financial discipline, and he was talking to entrepreneurs about there's a chapter 10 where he's talking about building wealth. Um, where he's talking about building wealth for personal reasons. And these two things he talks about. He talks about the use of your income as a wealth creation tool. Now, here's what here's what he actually points out here. I think this is on page 94. He said, "If you fail to discipline yourself concerning finances, inevitably finances will have you disciplined. If your resolutions are made in January coupled with discipline, then certainly results will be attained. The key lies in the way we orient our thinking with our income the way we orient our thinking. Are we looking at our income as a lifestyle sustaining tool or a wealth creating tool? The most unfortunate and painful reality is the majority of people who remain poor view their income as something that funds their lifestyle. They report for work to afford a lifestyle they lead. On the other hand, the wealthy people view their income as a vehicle for wealth creation and they work to become wealthy. These two thinking orientations are worlds apart, and they lead to an extremely different behaviors and actions. Even if two people are employed by the same company earning the same salary, they will end up in two different financial destinations, provided the orientations are different. That's page 94 of the Radical Entrepreneur book, and is actually quite correct here. There's a way of thinking that you actually have to adopt whenever you're trying to take a journey, because the way you think directs your journey. It moves you towards a destination. That's a very important thing. So I want you to think about the way you're thinking as the steering wheel of a car. The way you're feeling is the fuel tank of the car. So your feelings will give you a lot of energy to move in a direction, but the direction is determined by your mindset. So there are two things you have to really have control over. If you try and lead with your emotions, you're going to go all over the place. But you need that emotional connection between what you're doing financially, or even in terms of wealth creating, to be able to move in a specific direction. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage with those two thoughts. One is that our way of thinking is our way of thinking should not be in the ways we are trying to leave. If you are trying to leave poverty, if you are trying to leave stagnation, you cannot think the same way and expect the better results. And two, how do you view your income? There is a specific mindset that will direct the destination. So I don't know if we've kind of said it there enough, Vernon, that this is the importance of us doing Mindset Mondays, because all in all, I can give you the financial analysis, I can give you the tools. I think we've proven time and time again we have data beyond comprehension here. We have information that very few people have here. We have actually dished out tons and tons of information, but change can only happen when there is a reorientation of the way people view themselves and the way people view money. There's a relationship you have to build with money that can make it healthy. And if you utilize money in the wrong ways, I'm going to talk about some of the wrong thinking that we have to do. Actually, just a sidetrack, Vernon. Every year I do. There's a gentleman called Pastor Gregory DeCow, and he's famous for this thing called the 40-day fast from wrong thinking. And what he does is he says, look, you can fast from food, that's very important, but fasting from the thoughts that destroy your life walk are actually some of the most important things. Like the first day, he actually tells you, can you fast? Can you go a day without saying the word I can't? Okay. Can you go a day without trying to say that? Can you go from 6 to 6 without saying the word I can't? And the day you start being conscious of how many times you say these words, how many times you think these thoughts, is the day you actually start to reorganize your thoughts properly. And that's when you start to see different results in your life. I don't know about you, Vernon, before we get into the specifics of 5 areas I want to talk about of ways of thinking you need to let go of as you progress. There are 5 ways of thinking I want you to let go of as you progress. And those are your childish ways that you need to let go of so that you can progress to the next stage. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, progress is all centered on how you react to these situations. I had a mini meeting with some colleagues who were in high school years back, and we just had met up for a conversation or two and just catching up and whatnot. And something that I noticed was, um, well, the guys were introducing betting to me, and I'm thinking, what is this? I was like, anyway, you guys are trying to earn a living and and whatnot, but I felt if we're going to change really the aspect of how we're going to make money, then you need to change behavior on how you look at issues surrounding money and just how you react to situations that require you to finance them. One of our sessions we were looking at just how to handle these situations and different situations around centered on money, and you mentioned that something that will make you not sleep is a problem. Something that will, of course, will not be an issue for you that you can go to sleep, then it's really no big deal. But then I was telling them, you see, if you need to move yourself from financial stagnation, maybe, then there has to be the way you look at money issues and money in particular. I have had the privilege to work with some friends from Zimbabwe and Tanzania and some from Poland. And something that I picked up with those guys is those guys, when they came to Zambia, the one goal they had was to attain what they wanted here, and they did, because their mind was set on just but winning, and they knew that money is around. And if you go down for money, money will be available for you. But of course, if you see money is difficult, business is hard, business location can be a difficult challenge, then like that, your behavior towards money is also going to reap the very same effects and same results actually. But if you can tame yourself and look at money in a different way, then ultimately also, the kinds of results that you're going to reap out of that kind of behavior towards money and personal finance, and just ultimately everything around money issues is quite going to be very pleasant for yourself and of course people involved. So at the time, we really had a great time with that organization, and we were paid quite well, and we never complained because we were channeled to think in a way that money is money and it has to be attained, and you need to know how to handle money at the end of the day. But coming back from our background as Zambia, well, we never really worked in how to manage money, save, invest, and whatnot. We still squandered the monies and we were waiting for payday again. But for them, they were making money and the company is growing bigger and bigger at the end of the day. So I think what they were able to inculcate in us is the behavior as you are trying to source out money from clients for the organization, which also should trickle down to individual perspective now on how you handle situations centered on money. How you handle money itself. People say impia shisa pa impia shisa pempia shinankwe. Money comes where there's already money and multiplies in that regard. So if you're gonna be looking for money and want to grow money, I think essentially your behavior around money should essentially change. Emotional spending, things like those should also be brought into context if you're gonna be looking in that trajectory.
So, and that is true. If you have to tame certain things. So, as I said, let's go back to, if we start by, as I said, there was a biblical grounding which we opened up on, and that was when I was a child. I thought as a child. So I'll say this as well. Whatever you're trying to leave behind, you have to leave that thinking behind. So there's five things I really want to deal with: poverty thinking, temptation, impressing people, respecting affordability, and blaming everyone else. These are five things that I can guarantee you that if you work in these five areas and on these five things, you will probably find that your financial outcomes start to improve. But the problem is, a lot of us, we don't want to work on this kind of part of us and fix that area. And on the other side of 60 at 60, we will get into each one of these step by step, and we'll go through them, and also in the context of how to look at it from your financial planning perspective, how to look at it from even an entrepreneurial journey and your wealth planning perspective, how to look at it to make progress. But to everyone, welcome to Money FM's Mindset Mondays. Today we'll be talking about the five ways of thinking you need to leave behind in order to progress. You really want to tune in on the other side of this.
All right, and we are back at it.
Right. So, Vernon, let's get into this conversation, as I said, in terms of five ways of thinking that people need to let go of. And the first one I'm going to deal with is poverty thinking, which comes in three forms. The first way of poverty thinking is one, when you see money, what do you see? Do you see assets or do you see things you can consume within the next 30 days or things that are good for your things that will give you a jolt of an emotional boost very quickly? So when you see money, what do you see? This is a
Mhm.
strong test of what we've probably seen with people who have withdrawn even their NAPSA, people who get their salaries every day. This is why I said to you, whatever people are doing with their salaries right now is exactly what they'll do with the NAPSA withdrawal. They're not going to do anything different because there is an orientation of what they see when they see money. Now, to force yourself to see something different, that's a whole different ideology here. And the reality, Vernon, is what you see is based on who you think you are. If you think you are poor, you will only see money when even if your income increases, this poverty thinking will stay with you and it will trap you. This is why one of the most effective reasons why us, our people, whatever country you go to, black people are always fighting poverty. We're always thinking, but there's some systemic poverty. There's something. There's a system. Even if we remove laws that prohibit us from things, even if black people are now allowed to go to the same schools as white kids, even if all
Yeah.
these things start to change, we still think there's some system. No, the reality is, and to quote a woman named Brianna Wiest who wrote a book, "The mountain is you, my friend." The mountain you are trying to move is not the system, it's actually in you. And perhaps, yes, the system may have programmed you to think a specific way, but you have the liberty to deprogram yourself. You also have the
Mhm.
ability to see things differently. And that comes through education, that comes through exposure, various things. So, the first thing under this whole umbrella of poverty thinking, which is the first mindset you need to lay behind people, by the way, for all of you who are joining us on social media, please shout us a message if there's any other mindset or anything you maybe think about with this mindset is one, when you see money, what do you see? Do you see your bills? Do you see things? Do you see the next chills that you can finally go to? Do you see that thing you walk past in the shop that you really wanted? Do you see your desires, or do you see a way to stabilize your future so that you can utilize your time better? You see the difference between what's it between wealth and poverty is this. It's actually one simple sentence. Wealthy use money and they value time. Okay?
Mhm.
While the poor use time and they value money. That is a difference. It's actually a very, very important difference. And so one thing you'll notice, why? The wealthy will buy assets because it frees up their time, and then they can allocate their time to the things that they truly find valuable and meaningful, things that are often spiritual, things that are often intergenerational. That's what they view money for. So they're willing to sacrifice their desires for the purpose of actually attaining. Now, I'm not talking about that guy down the street who got rich off a tender, went to the club, made it rain. 5 years later, he's as broke as can ever be. And in fact, he's even worse than when he started. I'm talking about the people who for 20, 30 years have been wealthy for a long time. Okay, these people, the people who are so rich they can't get rid of it. Okay, those are the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about those are the wealth builders. That's the mentality they have. Their time is more important than the money. Okay, and they use the money to make sure that their time is protected, it's guarded, it's enhanced for their experience. Now, the problem is we all devalue time and people and we super value money. Okay, so that is a way of thinking you actually have to let go of and ask yourself, why do you value money so much more than you value time and people? And I'm not saying you shouldn't have money. This is the problem. The moment you
Mhm.
think about this, everyone thinks, no, no, now you're telling us that we should just throw our money with. No, I'm saying have a different relationship with it. Okay, have a
Mhm.
different relationship with it. The wealthy are wealthy because they have money, but they keep it because they look at it differently. This is why no matter how much money, 6.2 billion kwachavan, has been issued out to the Zambian people through NAPSA withdrawals. Let us do a survey at the end of all of this At the end of all of this, let's do a survey and see where that 6.2 billion kwacha has ended up. And I can guarantee you it's ended up in the stock market companies, it's ended up in the hands of banks, it's ended up in the hands of entrepreneurs who have sacrificed and decided that they're going to build an asset that's going to come to them. You see, this is the reality, people. At the end of the day, you can distribute money to as many hands as you want, but it always ends up with the people who treat it correctly and who handle it wisely, who see it as a tool and don't see it as a valuation of themselves. So that's a very important thing. All right. Kunda Kunda, I think, has answered the question when you see money, and he's written, I see money and I see bills, desires, and at the end of the end, when I remain with 200, I start thinking of investing in Patumba, in what's it, and all these other things. I'll leave those. But yes, and this is the problem. So when you see money, what do you see first? You know, and people, you have to understand, the Bible is full of monetary wisdom, like full of monetary wisdom. So in the book of Genesis too, and I say this a lot in even when I'm doing education, when I'm doing training and anything, I say, read Genesis 2:10. It's actually quite interesting what it says. And I'll read it to you so that you can understand money very carefully. It says, a river of water from the Garden of Eden, flowed from the Garden of Eden. And from there, it was separated into four waterheads. In fact, let me just change quickly. It says, a river flowed from the Garden of Eden, watering the garden. Okay, so the first thing it does is it waters the garden. In other words, all it did was sustain the garden. Then it broke into four riverheads. And these were Fishan, Gihon, Euphrates, and Tigris. They were very important to the development of that area. But I wanted people to think about this very carefully as your income. So your income flows through you, Vernon. What do? The first thing you just want to sort out is, okay, let me sort out what I need, all right? Not what
Yeah.
I want, not at my levels. What do I need? But also let me focus on asset development. The things that I want should come from what my assets can give me. That is a different way of thinking. Utilizing an income specifically for needs and then allowing assets to be developed so that the things you truly want are coming from your assets, not from your income. Because the reality is, you don't own the stream of your income. You actually don't, but you own the stream of income that comes from your assets. You don't own the stream of income that comes from your workplace, because your boss can wake up one day and say bye bye, and that's it. And what happens? Your income is gone. So that is poverty thinking. When you see money, the first thing you see is things I want, things I desire. But if you look and say, let me just sustain myself first and then use the rest for the future. Let me use as much as I can to deal with the future. Then we can start now freeing up time, because if you don't want to worry about the future, then start building your assets today. So that's what we look at when we talk about poverty thinking. The second level of poverty thinking, Vernon, is everything is a scam mentality. Now, there are plenty of scams to go around. Okay. The truth is, there are a lot of scams. But if you are just constantly viewing everything as a scam, you may actually miss on the things that you need. Let me tell you why I say this. When you are broke and don't have anything,
Yeah.
insurance seems like a scam. It is, okay? It feels like a scam to you because you're just giving away something in case something happens. But here's the reality, Vernon. The wealthier you get, the more you need to insure. This is one of the things that Nassim Taleb talks about in Anti-Fragility, where he talks and says the bigger you get, the more fragile you actually become. Okay, because
Yeah.
the more you have, the more you can lose. The bigger your portfolio, the more you can lose. The more important things like diversification become, the bigger you get. The more important it is to have insurance. Let me give you an example. I speak to a lot of people and I ask them the question. I say, okay, you own a home now. Do you have insurance on your house? And a lot of people, it's alarming, Vernon, the amount of people who do not have property insurance on the houses they live in and own and they've built. And I keep telling them, your whole life savings has gone into these houses, has gone into this house. Your whole life savings, your whole wealth. So I asked them, I said, if a fire broke out tomorrow, what's going to happen to you? Your whole balance sheet is actually going to go up in flames. All your wealth, it's gone, it's vanished.
Yeah.
So if you when you have nothing, insurance seems like a scam. But when you have something, it actually has a role to play. So when you are on a wealth building journey, you need to start understanding that not everything is a scam, and you have to start looking at where what phases you are in life and what you need. Okay. I've seen this mentality, people saying, child savings education is nothing. Then the moment they have a child, all of a sudden everything starts to change. They start looking at where they can start putting money aside. So you have to let certain mentalities away for you to be able to progress. Because what's going to happen to many people, and this happens horribly, is somebody will have a set of houses, a flood will break out, and their houses will get wiped out. And that's it. There's all their wealth vanished, gone. And they have to start from zero because that 1% situation came because they did not value. So here's what I will say to people. I'm not saying go for everything because not everything is a scam. No, I'm saying make your decisions based on sound financial principles. Do not make your decisions on feelings of fear or feelings of excitement. There is too much feelings based decision making out here. Okay, everybody, people who think everything is a scam, they operate on fear. People who go put everything in scams are operating on excitement. Okay, you need to stop the emotional decision making and you need
Yeah.
to start making principle based decision making and data driven decision making. And this is why sitting down with people, sitting down with an external party, this is actually why, Vernon, when you're sick, you go to a doctor. A doctor
Yeah.
does not have an emotional buy-in into your diagnosis, and this is why even doctors are not supposed to treat family members, because they're trying to make sure that there's no emotion in the prescription, there's no emotion in the decision making. They're trying to remove this. They're trying to make sure that the person is given an objective prescription that they can follow and their problem
Mm.
can be solved. So, if you want to solve these issues in your life, you need to make sure that you take a very strong data and more principled driven approach. So, don't allow fear and excitement to drive your decisions with money. Make sure you're making it on principles. I can't
Yeah.
invest in something that is offering me 90% return on investment and it has not been backed because Nyumba has given me the 4 C's and he's told me, does it have does it have character, does it have
Mm.
credibility, does it have credentials, is it been consistent for the past 5 years? If it's failing to tick these, then I maybe cannot put too much of my money. Now Munyumba also explained to me that I can only put about 10% of my money in these things, even though Bitcoin is at 79% in Kwacha this year to date. He has explained to me that that's a very volatile asset. So therefore, if I
Yeah.
want to go into it, and I don't have to, but if I want to go into it, I don't put more than 5% of my money in there just to have my portfolio balanced out. And just in case something goes wrong horribly, I'm thinking about it as what I call a form of insurance. And maybe he's explained to me other things. Those are principle driven decisions. Okay. So it is the navigation away from emotional driven decisions to principle driven decisions. To all of you who are homeowners today, I want you to think very carefully of what happened if one electrical wire went loose in your home and a fire
Mm.
broke out. What would happen to your balance sheet? What do you think would happen to your wealth state? Then you need to go and sit down with an insurance company. And from what I know with most insurance companies, it's about 1% the value of your house to insure the value of your house in terms of your annual premiums. Something along those lines, or even worse, please sit down with an insurance agent, shop around between 2 or 3 insurance companies, and then sit down and make a conclusion to say, I need to insure this property that I have, or else if anything goes wrong. There were floods, people. There was a tornado. There was a flood coming in from the eastern part of the world. Okay, recently. It wiped out
Yeah.
Malawi. Did nobody watch that happen?
Mhm.
It wiped out Mozambique and Malawi. And imagine if that thing crept into Zambia. Okay. And you had your house near a flood zone. That's it. All your wealth gone. Everything gone because you didn't insure against things. So you need to start thinking, when you build wealth, do you have insurance to protect that wealth as well? So you need to start taking responsibilities in that. And the third thing, Vernon, in terms of poverty thinking, is do it yourself mentality. Now, at the beginning, you're going to have to do a lot of things by yourself because you cannot afford help. And I don't think you should be splurging as much on a team of everything at the beginning. But as you scale, as you start to get bigger, complexity starts to come into your life naturally. Complexity becomes starts to come in the same thing is it's also the same with businesses, by the way. As your business grows, it becomes more complicated. So you
Mm-hmm.
need more managers, you need more people, you need more professionals. Professionals come as you scale. At the beginning you can rely on simplicity, but later on you need professional advice specifically for scaled purposes. Because the reality is, when you are starting your journey, it's very easy, by the way, to put up the same hundred, as in you're putting aside 1,000 kwacha. You don't need an advisor to help you with that. You need an educator to teach you and guide you and give you a basic strategy. But you can actually go along a long journey by just doing this. Okay, you can follow an advisor. This is why I always say, when you're at the beginning of your wealth building journey, follow one, follow a professional, so that they can give you some tips and tools. But really, you just need a very simple plan that you can follow going forward. But once you pass these 1 million, these 500,000, 1 million marks, you're gonna need to start speaking to some people, because wrong turns can cost you now. Bad mistakes can cost you. Okay, bad decisions, over concentration. These things can cost you, by the way. So I really want to just guide everyone along these first 3 points, okay, of poverty thinking. When you are broke, you think broke. But now that you're building wealth, you need to leave the ways of broke thinking and reasoning behind you. So, one of the poverty thinking that I've said is one, seeing money as things, two, do it yourself mentality, and three, emotional decisions over principled decisions. These are things you need to address within yourself before you actually now, as you venturing, because you will be the source of your own destruction. The second thing, Vernon, I think we need to try and let go of the thing you used to think like when you were when there was not much, and now that you're building much, you need to let go of is temptations. Okay? You need to let go of temptations. People, this is astronomically important. Benjamin Graham, and I'm going to point this out in two areas. Benjamin Graham talks about the three L's that destroy most men. Says most men, and this Benjamin Graham, by the way, is Warren Buffett's mentor. He used to work in his brokerage firm, and he was the one who taught him value investing. And he said the three things that destroy any man are liquor, ladies, and leverage. Now, yeah, it's that simple. And I will tell you this: any guy who can control his alcohol consumption properly, okay, control it, who can avoid silly debt, all right, who can contain his relationships with women to one and make sure that it's meaningful and not get caught up in a mess, who can work very hard. In other words, you're the person who pitches up at work 30 minutes earlier, you're the person who leaves 30 minutes well, and you work hard all the way in between. You leave 30 minutes later, you come in 30 minutes earlier, and you put in your work all the way through. Any person who does that, especially guys, any person who does that, had the probability of them building wealth is probably going to be much higher than anybody else. I can attest to you, because when I sit down and I'm doing one-on-ones and I'm going through, especially the guys, I can see the habits that they employ. They're extremely hard workers. They're not constantly guzzling. They're not trying to balance. Now, people say, no, but there are plenty of rich guys who have girlfriends all over. Yes, but they're not rich for long. Okay? 10 years, poof, gone. Why? Because that behavior, my friend, it destroys you. Okay, there was a video I saw, Vernon, of a guy who was on a woman on the Steve Harvey show. She was asking a question. She was like, "There's this guy who I don't really like, but he's offered me a trip to Hawaii. Problem. She's offered me a trip to Hawaii. Should I take it, even though I don't really like him that much?" And I'm there thinking, why are you offering trips to Hawaii to women you're not even sure about? Can we preserve these guys? Preserve these things, these grand gestures for your wife. Okay, preserve them for your wife, not for girlfriends and aspiring girlfriends. Preserve them for your wife. Okay, all these grand expenditures and gestures and things that you want to do, preserve them for your wife. Stick to one person and you channel that to that one person. Okay, that's the person who you're building your life with. And guys, you are the most guilty of this one. We know it as a group. Okay, we know each other. You can say no, but what about they? Don't point at the other gender. You know yourselves. Okay, This is where a lot of guys are getting destroyed. A conversation broke out over the weekend, Vernon, about this whole conversation of girlfriend allowances. Okay,
Yeah.
this is the problem. what, what? How on earth is this a thing? Okay, how on earth? And it's a rationalized conversation. No, but if a guy, people, if you want money from, go and get married. Why are people handing over money to each other? You're not married to each other. Where is this coming from? No, prove yourself if you're going to marry me. Then don't marry that person, people. It's actually okay if the woman doesn't like you. Stop validating yourself by the women that like you. You are using these women to improve your self esteem because you personally have low self esteem. That is the reality, and you don't want to address that. Because, guys, you have a lot of low self esteem. A lot of these women problems are coming from your self esteem issues. You need to sort out your self-esteem issues. This is why you're giving people allowances. If somebody's going to walk out on you because you're not giving them an allowance, then that's fine. Now, I'm not saying you can't give a girlfriend a gift. I'm not saying you can't buy them a Valentine's present. I'm not saying you can't buy them a birthday present, but an allowance, an actual salary, like they're an employee. Doing what? Okay, doing what? And what mentality? And a lot of this, Vernon, let me tell you where a
Mhm.
lot of this problem has come from. A lot of this problem has come from the sugar daddy problem. Okay,
Oh yeah.
these guys who, when they were young, they weren't much. Then some woman saw something in them. They got married. Then they became a manager at work. Now they have a little bit of money and power. Now they remember all those girls who used to reject them when they were younger. And now they want to go out there and start making it rain, leaving their wife at home and making it rain for women half their age so that they can go and show off to them. These guys have gone into the younger echelons of society, now imprinted in these younger women that no, you're due for an allowance. Now these younger guys are under pressure to think that that's normal. It's not normal. It's a bunch of people with issues in their lives who are going around bleeding their hearts on innocent people. This is a broken part of society. Okay, so if you are going to engage in wealth building, people, if you have the money to give someone a girlfriend allowance, put that money into assets for your future wife. Okay, put it into assets for your future wife and your future family. You're going to have children. You think back on your life when you're 40 something and 50 something and you're behind on your wealth goals and you're busy thinking, all that money I spent on girlfriend allowances and all that money I
Yeah.
spent on all this stuff, couldn't this have gone to my wealth, my balance sheet? Couldn't this have actually built my family's wealth? Couldn't I have a better standing on where I am? Okay, you can say the system and all these things, but the reality is you've burnt a lot of the money on silliness. Okay, the other parts, people, guys, liquor. Let's be honest here. We consume very hard. No, we
Too
we
much.
we, we overdo it, guys. We're doing it. You can give me all the speeches in the world that you want about how it's good for the economy and all that stuff. Cool, whatever. But it is not good for your wealth. I'm sorry, it's not. We've all been through this. Now, you can enjoy from time to time and so forth, but let's be honest. There are a large, growing number of guys who are struggling with this. 86% of the alcoholics in this country are males. Men consume 77 to 80% of the alcohol in this country.
Yeah.
Okay? We're consuming liters upon liters. Now, we don't have a problem. Now, if you go to countries, the top two alcohol consuming countries per capita in this world are Uganda and Seychelles. And they are struggling right now in Seychelles to get their men off alcohol. They are struggling. Okay. There's a serious drug problem that they're having there. And to get these people working, Uganda, they're having issues. They're saying guys can't work. They can't even function at home. It is getting to that point where it's chronic. These are things that are consumed higher in lower income areas than they are even in the higher income areas. One thing you'll notice about the guys who build a lot of wealth is they control their alcohol consumption. In fact, a lot of them don't even do it. Okay. Now, I'm not going to speak about which side of the fence I'm falling. I'm just telling you that they control it. And in fact, I've even noticed myself, the moment that thing
Mhm.
went stronger into control, the more money was freed up. The more you can now
Mhm.
start looking at assets. The problem is that thing is highly emotional. Alcohol is highly emotional and it puts you in a state where the moment you see money, you see chills. The moment you see money, you see Chicago's. The moment you see money, you are seeing a place to blow. And if you just count and total all these things, you'll notice that you have not put away as much as you thought you have. You're going to be 40, 45 saying, but I'm so stressed. I have to be at this job. You are there because in your 20s and in your 30s, you thought it was fun to just throw money at things. And these are the things that you have to start getting out of. So these are the ways of thinking and living. Steve Harvey actually said, you know, he said when he talks to young guys, he said, it's gonna your wealth building journey and your progress is gonna begin when you get over going out on Fridays. So when you get over that mentality, your wealth building starts to that's where your journey begins. Because no matter how much money I can give you 100,000, I can give you 200,000, you're just gonna find ways to inventively party it away. The more money I give you, the bigger your parties are going to become. That's all. The more expensive the alcohol you consume is going to become. That's literally all that's going to happen to you. So until you get over that, and usually it takes a shock in life, it takes a serious change. The other part, obviously, is leverage. People debt. 69% of the household credit in this country is contracted by men. Okay, this is according to the Bank of Zambia statistic. 69% of it. So already, if you can just avoid the liquor spending, the lady spending, the leverage, already you've freed up a lot more of your cash flow. And then if you can just put yourself in a harder working posture and position, you are most likely going to build wealth. That is a high probability. But you can't build wealth if you are constantly stuck on liquor, if you're dangling around woman after woman, and if you're playing around with debt. Okay, you can't do it. You're never gonna have the freed up income to actually place into an asset for long enough. Every time you look at your asset, you're going to want to withdraw from them and take from them. Okay, so this is something that you're going to have to start dealing with. And JB Fury, thank you very much for joining us. And he's actually said, I'm just pointing out the comments here. He's actually said, for me, it's the progressive compounding effects on a daily basis of having a big difference of simply by managing your time. It's true. Managing your time is a very important thing. Actually, that's one of the biggest things. As I said, the wealthy value time and use money, while the poor value money and use time. Okay, so that's a difference in ways of thinking. So we've talked about temptation. The second form of temptation, Vernon, is withdrawing from your asset accounts. I've seen people do this. Do you know that 50% of pension contributions in this country are withdrawn? So like if you and your employer are putting 100, like 50% of that is withdrawn on site, and it does not go back into assets. It does not go back into assets. There's some people who are already investing and already sitting down with an advisor. They will sit down and say, Munyumba, what should I do with this? Those are the people who will channel that stuff back into assets. But the majority of people, no, you're not going to do it. Okay. The moment that money hits them, off it goes. And these are the issues that people need to start thinking about as well. So, withdrawing from your asset accounts, why are you withdrawing? Ask yourself these questions. If let's say now at the end of your employment, if you and your employer have been working with an occupational pension, or you are to get your gratuity, and most people do this. When you get your gratuity, what do you do with it? When you get your pension, what do you do with it? Most people spend it. Okay. You can say no, but we're going to invest. No, don't lie to yourself. Majority of people spend it. Okay. This is this. There's a lot of disillusionment that happens when it comes to money issues because people are desperate to get their hands on that stuff. But when they get it, you are riddled with regret. Let me just be honest with you, people. Most of the stuff you're going to regret it. You're just going to sit there and say, "But why did I do this? Why?" You're literally going to do that, and you're going to look back at the next time where you're gonna find yourself in your 40s and 50s thinking, now, if I just made a decision to invest that money, think about where I could have been. I would have had choices by now. But the problem is in our 20s and 30s, we're impulsive about withdrawing because in our occupational pension or in our gratuity, we see more money than we see in our salary. So you have to be very careful about touching money that is 3 times your income. You must be very careful about getting loans that are 3 times your income, touching money that's 3 times your income. You are not used to that kind of money. You don't know what kind of person you'll become when that money hits your hand. You don't actually know. Okay, you think you know. You're going to write down all the plans in the world. When that money hits your hand, your poverty thinking ways will take over. And that's it. That's the reality of who you become and what you'll be. And then you wonder what happened to this money. But what happened? It was trickling out 1,000 kwacha here, 5,000 kwacha there, 200 kwacha here, 500 kwacha here. Poof, gone. Before you know it, it's gone. You're just telling yourself, well, that's not a bad expenditure. I can just have a night out with this one. I can just do it. It's not budgeted, it's not controlled. Before you know it, you've eaten into all of it. You have nothing to show. You've worked for 3 years at a place, you got your gratuity, and you vanished that gratuity. That's a reality. Okay. So withdrawing from your accounts, when you get your gratuity, instantly try and put as much of it away. 75%, in fact, I advise 80% of your gratuity should go into your wealth account. You know why I tell you this? If you are getting a gratuity, you don't have an occupational pension. What do you think you're going to retire on? Okay. Gratuity is for asset building, people. It is not for spending. It's not a bonus. You people treat gratuity like a Christmas bonus. It is not. Okay. That's a very dangerous way to think about it. A gratuity is not for the things you wish you could buy but cannot have. Now your salary has increased. You treat a gratuity like a salary increment. It is not a salary increment. It is a payout for your benefits. It's your retirement. And if you don't adequately put it away into retirement assets, you will suffer in your retirement. And a lot of people who are on contracts earning gratuities, they're the ones who are actually in the most danger of suffering. Okay. People who switch jobs are also in danger because you are allowed to withdraw your full pension tax free. In fact, it's your entitlement according to the constitution of the country as of 2016. And as a result, we've gone from a 25%, we've gone from withdrawals making up only 25% of and this happened when in 2011 all the way up to 2015. If you're looking at pension and insurance data, withdrawals from pension funds were only 25% of contributions. Now they're 56% of contributions. It has doubled. Okay, why? Because people are now liquidating their pensions fast every single time they switch work, when they resign and everything. And where's that money going? It's a huge pile of cash that is now subject to their emotional and poverty ways, which is going to vanish. The moment that time hits, it's going to vanish. So you must let go of your temptations. One, in your spending, your liquors, ladies, and leverages, and two, your withdrawals. You need to control these areas. Withdrawing from asset accounts is dangerous, people. You must get into full compounding asset building. The third one, Vernon, the third way of thinking you must leave behind is trying to impress people. Okay? You're making sure that your money is for show and not to grow. That's a very dangerous way of thinking. Okay, so if anyone can write that one down, that's one thing you want to make sure. Trying to impress people is about making your money for show and not for growth. That's a very dangerous one. Okay, you're prioritizing what you can show more than what actually grows. And I've seen people, uh, a person will put a large portion of their wealth, Vernon, into the mansion they live in, okay, as opposed to a set of flats. The first thing they want to build is the mansion they can stay in instead of the set of flats that will feed them when they're in that mansion. And then what ends up happening? Bang, problems. Okay. I've seen this as well. People are putting their money into the cars that people can see. People are putting their money into things that people can see. A lot more money goes to show than to grow. Okay, and that is where the danger comes from. So this need to try and impress people. Think even the house that you have, people. There's going to be affordability tests I have, but you'll see this in the ways that you spend money. You'll also see this in the way people need to contribute to events. Okay, people must know that I'm Uncle Ndarama. People must know when I walk into an event, so that when something happens, it's me who speaks. It's my voice. That voice is costing you the future of your wealth. It's costing you your peace. It's costing you your freedom. How important are the views of these people? We really, really borrow and spend a lot of money to impress people who, when they go to sleep, they don't think about you. I'm being honest. They don't. They really, really, really don't think about you. So really make sure that when you are putting your money, ask yourself this question. When I'm buying, is it for showing or is it for growing? Because if it's for growing, then you're putting it in the right place. But am I going to derive pleasure from the way people are going to say, wana, wonderful? Even the assets people have, even the way people invest. I've seen people are almost obsessed, Vernon, with trying to make sure that they've got a really fancy story about how they got rich. Say, you know what I did? So what I did was I found the Bitcoin was moving. Then I came in at the bottom and it jumped. Forget the story. I'm going to tell you a very simple and basic thing. If you want to know where the majority of the people who have a net worth of 2 million kwacha or more are deriving the majority of their wealth, it comes from three simple things: buildings, bonds, and benefits. That's it. Those are the three areas where the majority of their wealth comes from. I have done hundreds and upon hundreds of consultations. I have dealt with people and their net worth statements. And what do I keep seeing pitching up? My employer benefits. This is how much is there. My buildings, my rental buildings specifically, this is how much is there. And my benefits and the bonds I've invested in. You will find that a majority of people's wealth is sitting in buildings, bonds, and benefits. It's that simple. It's not impressive. It's not something that's fancy, but a majority of their money and wealth is sitting there. It's in the workplace pension they've been contributing to for the last 10 years non-stop. It's in the rental flats that they've been owning and building for a decade or so. And it's the bonds they've been buying for a long period of time because they've been saving 30 to 40% or whatever of their income and drilling it into those assets. At the end of the day, it is those three things that have actually developed the majority of the people's wealth. The everyday millionaires, the everyday kwacha millionaires who are holding their wealth are just in buildings, bonds, and benefits. Nothing fancy. Okay? They didn't pick up on some other thing, and they've got a lot of stable wealth. And when they retire, they're going to retire very calmly. They're going to retire well because most of their money is sitting in those things. Now, there is an over concentration in properties, and what a lot of them come to people like me to do is to diversify out so that they don't have too much of it sitting in property and they're not overexposed to a poor labor market. That's what they try to avoid. Now, some of them have used credit, a lot of them have just built with cash. Okay. But the reality, it's the buildings that they put on rent, it's the bonds that they own, and it's the benefits that they receive from their employer. These are the three areas. They don't touch these things, they allow them to grow. They are patient, they live within their means. I've seen their budgets, they're very focused. They live within their means. They're very good at this. But the reality is, a lot of us are trying to shortcut the process. We're trying to tell an impressive story at the next chills, when really what we should be focusing on is just putting our money, buildings, bonds, and benefits. You can put them into the stock market as well. They start to diversify later, but the baseline of wealth sits in these three areas. That's where the majority of people's wealth sits in. Okay, the everyday millionaires who do it by saving and investing their salary and their income, whether they're teachers, whether they're bankers, whether they're engineers. And in fact, a lot of them are people like engineers, those people who are process driven, who stick to a process and they just stick to something, people who have got science minded, they are the ones who do this. It's that simple. And then the final things I want to talk about, Vernon, is affordability. Okay. Affordability is something that everyone must respect. Want what you want, but buy what you can afford. Repeat after me, Vernon, and I ask as many people to repeat after me. Want what you want,
What
but
you
buy what you can
what
afford.
you can forward.
Okay, that is a very important statement that even myself, I had to ring myself to start saying. You cannot spend money on everything you want. Okay,
Yeah.
you cannot borrow for things you want. And even the same thing, by the way, and by the way, that statement was made about dating in your dating within a certain caliber. That was the origins of that statement. You know the person you're trying to date. You know the levels that they're used to. Are you sure you want that level of stress? I, listen, I don't care how much of a view, how much of props people can give you. Do you want that level of stress in your life, Chief? Okay, you know the kind of people this one moves around with, and then you want to go and join the just leave it. It's fine. Not everything in this world is for you. That's what you need to
Mm.
understand. But it's a very good financial principle. Want what you want, but buy what you can afford. Now let's talk about even things like car affordability. Nobody should be spending money on cars according to the 2028-3 principle of how to actually finance a car of everything. The price of a car should not exceed 6 times your monthly income. And if your monthly income is too low for the car you want, well, guess what? Want what you want, but buy what you can afford. That is the reality. You can't afford it. Okay. Stick your transactions to affordability. Can it stick within a budget and is it affordable to me? Have some rules. Okay. If you try and spend according to how you feel about things, hey, money will vanish like this. But if you spend according to what is affordable and what is within your budget parameters, there is a different situation. So want what you want, but buy what you can afford. Think about the house you're staying in. Okay. Rent what the house you're renting. Can you afford it? Does it fit within the 25 to 30% limit of your income? If it's too expensive, guess what? You can't afford it. And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter how angry you get. Because I get people who tell me things like, I'll share this one with you, Vernon. This is the car, and I'll share this one on the screen. This is the car affordability test, which many people are afraid of. Whenever I look at it, whenever I show them in terms of their wealth, and basically, if you're going to have a cheaper branded car, I don't know if this thing is visible to everyone, but if you're going to have a cheaper branded car, okay, it basically should be your age times the car price divided by 10. If your liquid net wealth is less than that number, that car is not affordable for you. Okay. If you're going to buy a luxury car, it's your age times the car price divided by 5. So if we're talking about a Benz or a Beam or anything there, we're talking about it's your age. So the older you are, the more wealth you need to have for the cars you have. So, and this is the total cars you have, by the way. This is based on the 830, and I'm talking about liquid wealth. I'm talking about your rental properties, your bonds, your stocks, your cash value, all these things that you've put together. These are the things that are going to determine whether a car is affordable to your balance sheet. Because what we don't want is your car being too much of your balance sheet. Okay, so you want to control all of this as well. Finally, Vernon, even homes. Homes should only be about 4 times your annual income. The home you own should be about 4 times your annual income, the construction costs. So that is something that I really want as many of you to want to say. Finally, Vernon, as we wind up today, the final thing you must leave behind as you're trying to go on a wealth building journey is to stop blaming everyone. Okay? It is not the politician's fault you're broke. It is not the economy's fault you're broke. It is not your uncle's fault. It's not your father's fault. It's not your brother's fault. It's not your cousin who you think did juju on you that you're broke. It's you. Okay? Stop blaming everybody. There's a book called 13 Things That Mentally Strong People Don't Do. And number one rule that Amy Moore says is they don't blame people. They focus on the things that they can control, and they don't put the blame and responsibility for their lives. Because when you blame another person, you're also giving them responsibility to rectify it. Now, yes, they can be the root cause of the problem, but remember, you have the ability to respond to everything that happens to you. So I want to close out by telling people, once you have, even if inflation goes up, it is your duty to manage your income and to manage your assets to make sure that you're inflation proofing yourself. So no matter what's happening around you, the only reason you are not where you're supposed to be is because of you. And if you think like that, you will actually manage yourself a lot more better and probably have that. But if you have that mentality of it's the politicians and then you're there in social media, Bali, fix this, Bali, fix that, ACL, fix this, ACL, fix that, you will never. Most of those people who are looking to blame somebody do not build anything. You will either build or you will blame, but you will not do both. That's the mentality. So quickly round up the top 5 things. One thing, poverty thinking, DIY mentality, seeing money as things and everything is a scam mentality. In other words, making decisions on emotions and not making decisions on principles. The second mindset you need to leave behind is temptation mindset. Liquor, ladies, and leverage, guys. If you focus on those things and you adopt a hard work, withdrawing all the time, you need to stop that. The trying to impress people, making your money for show and not for grow, not respecting, want what you want, but buy what you can afford, and blaming everyone. You are responsible for your outcomes. And that, Vernon, are the things that when you were broke, you thought broke. But when you are when you were broke, you thought broke. But now that you're building wealth, you must leave broke ways behind. And with that, my brother, that is our mindset Monday.
Appreciate it. Thank you. You have a good one.